Welcome to Thinking Deeply About Primary Education, the podcast that makes time and space to think about pedagogy, teaching and learning, professional development, anything of interest to time poor but enthusiasm rich primary teachers. So this week, I have some very special guests from the Velindre Cancer Centre who have joined me to explain the work that happens there, why we were raising funds for them last week at the Thinking Deeply About Primary Education conference in Bromley, and also to perhaps explore a little bit about how we might be able to support children who are impacted by cancer and diagnoses to family members in particular. And so we thought it'd put a little bit of flesh in the bones, help everyone listening to understand why we were doing what we were doing, and also see where the money raised last week is going to. And it was a fantastic event. Really, really enjoyed it. I was, as always, waiting for something catastrophic to go wrong, but actually nothing did. It went really smoothly. And I thought the vibe was fantastic. Everyone was really engaged in their professional development and really couldn't ask for anything more. So thank you very much to everyone who came. Looking forward to the next one. Obviously, tickets are on sale from Manchester, March 29th, link in the description, where we're going to be doing it all again. And we've already got some lovely speakers. If you check out my Blue Sky, there's a link for the session proposal, which is open until the 7th of February. And so, I mean, like I say, we were testing out the concept in Bromley, seemed to go well, certainly very positive feedback. And so long may it continue, and we'll get things up and running in Manchester and then Cardiff later in the next academic year, but this calendar year. So without further ado, let's spend some time thinking deeply about primary education. So this week, joined by Hugh Williams-Jones and Kylie McKee. Hi, both. How are you?
Hello. Well, thank you.
Hi, Kylie. Very good, thanks.
It's great to have you both here. We're going to try and build on the success of our conference in London last week. I thought we'd start with a bit about why you guys are here today, what your journeys have been respectively.
So my name's Kylie. I'm the head of fundraising at the Velindre charity, which is the charity that raises funds for Velindre Cancer Centre in Cardiff. Been there 18 years this year, so yeah, very long time. And I suppose my main role is fundraising, raising funds, inspiring others and supporting others to raise funds for the charity. And then all that money then is invested back into the hospital. So just to give you a bit of an idea, so as I said, we're a charity. Velindre is actually an NHS hospital. The charity provides things that are over and above the NHS budget. So we can't fund things that the NHS should pay for. So we fund all the things that are the extras, the nice to haves. And I'll go into a bit of detail in a bit about what, just some examples of those things. But I would like to say that the hospital wouldn't be the hospital it is without the charity. All the funds that are raised, it just makes such a difference there. The services, the treatments, the staff and the equipment and the research, all of that just makes such a difference to the journey and the experience of our patients, their families and their carers. So on average, we raise around 4 million a year. However, this year we have had a significant increase in our income and have raised just over, almost 6.5 million. So that's phenomenal. But yeah, on average, we raise about 4 million. And as I mentioned, that all goes back into the hospital and it doesn't go anywhere outside of Velindre. So just to give you a few examples of some of the things that we fund from the charity. So we, as a hospital, obviously, we've got lots of nursing staff, but we have specialist cancer nurses. And they are exceptionally, high, I suppose, of a higher skill set and expertise in various cancers. The plan is, or the goal would be for every single cancer area to have a specialist nurse within that area. They support the patient, from diagnosis all the way through treatment, even to the aftercare. And every patient that has access and support from one of these specialist nurses say they could never have got through that journey or, that time without their support. But unfortunately, we just don't have enough money, and not every cancer area has a specialist nurse within it. So that is the goal. But Velindre Charity funds over 50% of the specialist nurses at the hospital. So yeah, we would be 50% down if it wasn't for the charity. And that's an investment of around £500,000 a year. And there are 24, I think, there. So we fund 12. And like I said, they just make such a difference to the patients, that they support through their journey. And even things like, dealing with their treatment, or, explaining the treatment in more detail, going in with them when they're receiving that diagnosis and being there to support them, especially if it's not a great diagnosis. Emotionally, physically, they just add such, just that additional care and support that, yeah, they say that they couldn't go through it without them. So the aim is for every single cancer site to have, a specialist nurse within their team, but unfortunately we don't, but that's the goal. And then we invest over £2 million a year into groundbreaking research, world-class research actually, and clinical trials. So obviously trials of new drugs for various different patients if they're eligible, and that's over £2 million a year there that we invest that in that area. And then on the other, sort of mid-range then, so every patient obviously that comes through Velindre gets access to a psychologist, and I suppose getting a cancer diagnosis is probably the most challenging thing anybody would ever go through. So being able to have psychology support there to help patients process that diagnosis is it's a huge support, and that team there are funded from the charity. We are now looking into how we extend that support to relatives and close friends of patients, because what we find is, and this is information that's given to us from patients and their relatives, in that the patient has the support, but the relatives, and sometimes they need it more because they, I suppose, are trying to stay strong for the patient. They're holding all those emotions inside, and they tend to be the ones that sometimes struggle more. So we are now looking as a charity to be able to invest into counselling and psychology services for relatives and close friends and of patients. So that is something that we're expanding into. But another area I should say that we fund is our complementary therapies team. And this is around 300,000. And within that, then you have treatments such as reflexology, Reiki, aromatherapy. And it's not just, one of the main reasons, patients have it is to help them relax during treatment, take their mind off maybe that chemotherapy going in, and just helping them relax. But in some cases, we've had patients who are so scared of needles that they're refusing to have their treatment. So the team there have come in, given them some, reflexology or Reiki, whatever they choose, and it relaxes them enough to be able to admit, to receive their chemotherapy or their radiotherapy. So it is just more than just having a nice treatment. And then another area, and this is something that we'll probably go into a little bit later, Kieran, is our children's resources. So we have a specialist nurse, again, one of the nurses that we fund from the charity, Michelle Pengelly, and her area is supportive care. So she's the lead in that area, and she supports patients who have young children within their family. So patients, either grandparents or parents who obviously have children, they get a cancer diagnosis, and then Michelle and her team then will support them. So from the charity, so we fund a series of tools and services and resources, including specialist books that have been written by our team, actually by Michelle herself, on how to explain cancer to a child using the correct terminology. It has instructions in that book on, emotions to look out for, questions that need to be answered, questions that they need to ask the child as they're delivering that story. And it's all to do with the psychology of the reaction of the child. And so it's really comprehensive, has a set of comprehensive instructions at the beginning. And then the storybook is written. So we have a series of 8 books, and it resembles various family settings. The idea that Michelle had was she wants to, give a book that resembles that family who sat in front of her that day. So the book reflects their journey as closely as possible. And then the characters within the book are lions, and and there's a parent lion and a child lion. And the idea is that's to do with separation anxiety. So if a parent, for example, is really unwell after treatment or needs a hospital stay and, for example, may not be able to pick a child up from school one day, which is a change to the child has the parent toy because it obviously resembles the parent, and the parent has the child toy that resembles the child. And they always feel like they're connected even when they're apart. And that just helps then that family obviously navigate in that awful journey that they're on. And then we also provide things such as memory boxes, which I think does what it says on the tin in that, it's a special box that's is a child-friendly design. It might be space or stars, different types of design. And obviously the idea is that it will store special items from a parent or a grandparent who may, be no longer with us or due to be passed away. And it just helps keep them in secure and a safe and a very special momentum then of that person, of that relationship. And the box comes with different compartments for, things like maybe jewelry or, a piece of clothing or, something that's special to them. So that memory box is around £40. The book itself is around £20, and then the lion toys are probably around £40 to £50. And that's just some of the resources that our team then looking after that family are able to provide that just helps them on that journey and just makes a difference to that family. So there's just a couple of examples of some of the things that we fund from the charity.
My name is Hugh Williams-Jones, and I'm an ambassador and fundraiser for the Velindre Cancer Charity, the Hospital of Hope, as it's called in Cardiff.
I think you're potentially selling yourself short there because you've done a phenomenal amount of fundraising over the time. I mean, what sort of things are people likely to see you doing over the last decades?
Yeah, I kind of, I think my journey, and it is a journey really, because it's a life-changing journey for myself. Came about probably, started for myself in 2009, 2010, when I lost a very good rugby colleague of mine, somebody who I played with in the front row, probably 250 times. We come through youth rugby together, and he unfortunately lost his life to pancreatic cancer at 48 years of age. And I was a little bit younger than him, just a year or so younger. And it just kind of hit home to me, what can I do to help others who have gone that sort of unfortunate disease. So my first sort of fundraising endeavour was I decided to do the Welsh Three Peaks, is called, which is doing climbing Snowdon, climbing Cadair Idris, and climbing Pen y Fan all in the same day. So we started in the morning. I got about 19 colleagues from work. We started in the morning, and we summited Snowdon down to Cadair Idris, and then did Pen y Fan, which raised around £10,000. That £10,000 then was I wasn't involved with Velindre at that point, but I give it to a local hospice, a within Newydd in Bridgend, and they were able to purchase equipment and chairs for the relatives of families who were staying overnight with them. So the following year, I think it would have been just a year or so later, I bumped into Andrew Morris, who was Kylie's predecessor as head of fundraising for Velindre in the gym, and he kind of introduced himself and asked, could he have a coffee with me after we'd finished training. So I went for coffee with Andrew. I come home, I said to my wife, I've just signed up to do a bike ride from Boston to New York, and I need to raise £6,000 to do it. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I said, what have I done here? And I'd been on a bike since I was about 16. So that was the start of my journey, really. And I cycled Boston to New York with Kylie on the first one, and the rest of the team, and they're absolutely amazing when the support they give to you and the commitment with it. And they are genuinely life-changing events. You're cycling over, and they're not easy challenges. They're tough challenges, and you're cycling over a period of days, and you start to it's a lot of time when you're on your own on the bike. Even though you're with a company of lots of other people, there's lots of time when you're on your own. You start to dig deep and think about the what ifs and the maybes and the other things, and that kind of puts into perspective why you're there. And of course, we have some fun along the way as well, because that is the important part of it. So that was my first ride, and then since that time, I've gone on and with Kylie again. We've cycled the Canadian Rockies from Camo up to Jasper in the snow. We've cycled from San Francisco to Los Angeles in the sun. We cycled the three canyons, which was Zion Canyon, Bryce Canyon, and the Grand Canyon at altitude, where it was really difficult to breathe. We cycling at about 10,000 feet. So they were really challenging events. We cycled from Paris down to Bordeaux in 40-degree heat, and after a couple of days we stopped from cycling for one morning because of the heat. And then in November of last November, we cycled from Florida, from Orlando, Cocoa Beach, right the way down to Key West, passing Donald Trump's house on election day. So thanks for that. Due to that, we had about a 12-mile detour. We had to go in through the city and around the place. So, and as a consequence, I think, I'm not sure, guys, but I think I'm raised about 112 or 114,000 now. Something in the region of that.
Lose count after 100.
There we are. After I did my sort of second ride, that was going to be my last one. And then I did the third one. I thought, this is definitely my last one. And then I did the canyons, and it was like, oh, that's me done. And then after the Florida ride this year, that was definitely me done on my cycling, until after one celebration event with Kylie and umpteen pints of Guinness, I've just signed up again to do another one. And in 2026, I'm going to be cycling in Spain for Velindre again, from Seville down to Cadiz and around the sort of coast back up to finish around the Marbella area. So so my seventh ride, and I've had fantastic support from so many people, and it is an absolute privilege and an honour to be an ambassador for the charity. It's an honour and a privilege to be able to raise funds for people who are suffering and people who are not as well off as myself. And it's the likes of people, Kieran, like yourself, and the event you run Saturday. And perhaps I can take this opportunity of saying a huge thank you to yourself, a huge thank you to everyone who bought tickets for the event, everyone who contributed to the event, and my thanks. I can't say enough in how much that difference it makes when people like yourselves, people come forward and people put that money to assist and help Kylie really in the stuff that Kylie talked about, and the work that the fantastic team at Velindre undertake on a daily basis to make that cancer journey easier for people. And I think I was with Kylie on Saturday night, and we did an event in a local rugby club with a Q&A with James Hook, and I compared it. And at the start of the evening, and Kylie will do it quite regularly, there were 140 odd people in the room, and Kylie said, if you've had cancer or currently got cancer at the moment, would you mind standing up if you don't mind? And around the room, people stood, and there was probably about 8 or 9 people around the room. And then Kylie's next question was, if a close relative, be it a sibling, mother, father, brother, wife, has had cancer, please stand up. The room stood to probably 80% full. And the final question that Kylie asked was, if you've got a close friend who's had cancer, please stand up. And I looked around the room, and it hits me every time. I looked around the room and I couldn't see anyone remain seated, because it affects everybody. Everybody will at some time be hit by it, are being hit by it, or have been hit by it. And the more I can do to help other people, I guess then that's the better it is for everyone around. And it's an honour and a privilege to be involved with so many great people and so many great people who are prepared to donate and support the Hospital of Hope that is Velindre.
Yeah, it's huge, and it is an honor because, well, I think when I emailed or set up the Just Giving page for this conference, no, who am I? They could have just said, "Who is this guy? Are you really raising money?" But actually, everybody. I think Lucy was the first person I spoke to. Then Kylie couldn't have been more helpful. What do you need? We got leaflets out to everybody so that everyone who came to the conference had that information and stuff. Because you're absolutely right. Whatever room you go into, the vast majority, if not everybody, will have been touched by it at some point.
Absolutely.
And so, obviously, we've got a connection between, you're the long-suffering father of Lloyd Williams-Jones, who's a regular contributor to this podcast.
And long-suffering are the right words there as well.
And so it just makes sense for when we're doing this kind of thing, to try and give it to a place where it's going to be used so well, because, depending on when you measure, I think Velindre's, depending on when you start to count, it's definitely been more than 30 years that Velindre has been going, but I think it may even go way beyond that, but just under slightly different sort of terms and conditions and stuff.
We're due to celebrate our 70th anniversary next year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it looks slightly different the 70 years ago, because obviously, the amount of people getting cancer is obviously increasing year on year. I mean, just 20 years ago when I first started in this area of work, it was 1 in 4, and it's now 1 in 2 nationally. And so all those patients who are obviously coming to Velindre for treatment, we've needed to expand, and we've expanded, extended, and we're bursting at the seams. So there is currently a new hospital being built, which is state of the art. All singing, all dancing hospital when it's finally finished, which the plan is for 2027. The people of South Wales, will be treated at probably the most efficient hospital, I think, in Europe, or it's something really special. But they deserve it. Velindre, like I said, has been there 70 years soon, and I think we're in need of a new hospital, and it's really, really exciting. It is really exciting what that hospital is going to be like. What's going to go on there. And we're just in desperate need of it. And like I said, with the increase in, the numbers of cancer patients now increasing year on year, it's being built for sort of cancer statistics 30 years down the line, even further again. So, if that trend increases, then I guess every one of us will be affected at some point, whether, but I think the more money, well, it's not, I think it is, the more money that we invest, into research, into treatments, into trials and drugs and things, the more people are now living with cancer. It's not the death sentence it was 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
That through research and through all the money that we invest into these things, more work is done, and so many more people are now, surviving cancer or living with it for a very long time. And I hope that will just continue. With the more that we raise, the more we invest, and the more good work, the more of us, have a brighter future.
Yeah, 100%. I think, Kylie, when you talk around 1 in 2, it was 1 in 3 when I kind of started my journey, and it's down to 1 in 2. But I think on the positive side of that as well, probably the demographic is that the people getting cancer, a lot of those are older people now as well, Kyle. It's probably fair to say that
live longer,
that people are living longer because of other advances in medical technology and stents and managing people who perhaps would have sadly passed away with other ailments. They are now living longer, but subsequently it's creating more cancer issues within people. And so it's certainly never. We can do the best to try and get victory over cancer, and it's 2-in-1. I think, as I may not be absolutely accurate on that, but I think it's gone over the 50% percentage of people who have cancer survive it now, don't they?
Yeah. A lot more people now either survive it or live with it. And you hear of people have had cancer for 20 years, and they just it's just controlled through checkups and drugs, and so a lot more people do live with cancer these days than they did, like I said, 40, 50 years ago.
it just sort of makes you think about how important those nurses are. If you're
Yeah.
funding 50% of them, does that
Yeah.
mean if Velindre wasn't there, that you guys would be, there would be 12 nurses
Yeah.
covering the whole of South Wales?
Yeah. And, we treat 1.5 million patients, across that area. Southeast Wales is our primary area. So, yeah, it would be less than half. And, it would be half of the nurses. And we need more of them, not less of them. Like I said, the amount of patients who don't have access to one of those nurses, we want to be able to give everybody access. And, yeah, there's not enough funds for that at the moment. But they are integral to that patient's experience and that patient's journey. So yeah, it is our aim that every patient has access to one, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Are they out there? They're traveling around, sort of giving care in the person's home. I'm trying to think back to when my granny was sort of being treated. She had someone come out there every couple of days, that kind of thing.
Our nurses work out of Velindre, and they also go to other hospitals in the area. So if a consultant at Velindre is doing a clinic in for example, I don't know, the Neville Hall in Abergavenny, which they do various clinics in different hospitals. Then that specialist nurse, if they have one, will go along to those clinics. So they are out in the community, sort of, not into homes. That's for another, that's a different service there. But yeah, our specialist nurses will go out to the hospitals as part of that clinic. But we also have, so the aim is, going forward, as well as the new hospital, the aim is to be, for our teams and our nurses and our consultants, to be delivering care in those communities, which means patients don't have to come in to Velindre. Obviously, for radiotherapy, they have to. That's where their machines are. However, we are now putting radiotherapy machines into other hospitals. So there's one in Abergavenny currently, and we're calling them satellite centres. So patients, again, haven't got to travel down from Brecon or from, Edwardvale all the way to Velindre for daily radiotherapy sessions. They can have it now closer to home. But chemotherapy can be delivered in people's homes or in their local doctor's surgery, for example. So that's the plan, is for, as much as we can get delivered as close to that patient as possible. That is the future plan. Just to, again, if you think, if you're feeling really unwell and you're having radiotherapy every day and you live in Brecon, well, that's maybe, depending on what time your appointment is, if it's rush hour, that's like an hour and a half journey. Yeah. And you hour and a half there, hour and a half home when you're feeling awful. If you need hospital transport, then that you're on a bus or, mini bus, and you would think that might double that journey time. And you just want to be in bed or at home on the couch, if you're feeling really rubbish. So that's the way sort of treatment is going. As much that can be delivered locally or in homes or, like I said, in their local communities, will be going forward.
I think as well, Kylie, as that treatment is fantastic, that those specialist nurses. But some of the other stuff, and I didn't realise, but Kylie mentioned it on Saturday when we were at the event, that when people have chemotherapy, their arms go really, really cold. Because the chemo is such, and so they've now, the charity funds like arm warmers for every individual now, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So when they come in, they've got like an arm warmer that fits over their arm, that keeps the arm warm, because it gets so cold during the period of time they're having that chemotherapy. So just little things like that can make other people's lives that much easier, and perhaps ease the suffering that they're going through.
Yeah.
All the things you've described, they sound like the difference between a really horrible experience and potentially, obviously, life-threatening, and one that actually is manageable.
Yeah.
Make those small differences, make it manageable. You can get through this, because if we think about, if you've got a family and you're unfortunate enough to have a diagnosis, every little bit of help you can get to get over the line is huge.
It's 100%. It's 100%, and them little things you may think, "Oh, arm warmer," or but that's just a little something. That's 1% that makes it a little bit easier, and then it's something that makes it 5% easier. And in the end, the nurse and everything around it, it's making our patient's experience a better experience for them, and when they need it most, there's that kind of support and help for them as they're going through it, and that's kind of what drives my fundraising on. And when I hear Kylie talking of those things on Saturday, the two things, and it gets me every time when the people stood up in the room, And then when Kyle started talking about those arm warmers, and I thought, wow, there's something else we're doing, and it just makes me really feel privileged and proud to be able to help with the fundraising, and it stands like in I say it's life changing, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. My journey has changed my life and improved my life in many ways, in many respects, because you have such a feeling and an awareness now that that I might not have had before, and it does. It's an honor. It's an honor to do it, and it's one of the certainly the highlights of my life, and being involved with Velindre for the time I've been. I was fortunate enough to play a bit of rugby at a half decent level, but this sort of, I'm as proud of the stuff that I do with Velindre, and feel as privileged to be involved with Velindre as I was with any other sport or anything else I've done in my life.
Half decent level. You're being so modest today. I mean, what is it about Velindre? Is it those little things? Because obviously you're clearly going the extra mile. What drives you to go above and beyond for Velindre in particular?
Myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's those things, and I think my journey commenced, as I said, with my good friend losing his life to pancreatic cancer. Which talk about the worst cancers. It's up there with those cancers. You get diagnosed with pancreatic or bowel, as you say, and you think, oh. And whereas you get diagnosed perhaps with prostate cancer now and breast cancer to an extent, a lot of the time now, the chances of survival are quite high. Whereas the other way with the others. So yeah, those little things that I do, and we go down and we have some ambassadors evenings, and we'll have some consultants come in and talk to us about where the money's being spent. I know what Kyle's saying about the nurses and stuff, but I think it was a while back when we talked about the NHS will fund certain equipment, which rightly so they should. But there was like a machine that the consultant was talking of. There was like £4 million or whatever, and it was the ordinary bog standard machine, if you like, and we could have bought the GLX one or whatever it is, and the top end version. That was 6.2 million or whatever it was, and I think the charity then were able to fund the difference in the gap, so that we could have the better machine and the better equipment, again, to make people's sort of journey and their treatment as comfortable as possible. So those kind of things kind of drive you on when you see that. And Kyle will be the same. We've been along together. Me and Kyle have cycled umpteen times together, and it is tough sometimes, Kyle, in it. And you're going along side by side with a few of you, and you may go for a couple of hours, and nobody says a word, because you can't keep talking all the time, and you're going up bloody big hills, and it's like you're thinking, oh. But then you just kind of flash back in your mind to, and one for me that pulls me through continually is, I just think of my friend or whatever. What would he give just to have one go at going up this hill now, at 62 years of age, when he unfortunately lost his life at 48. So those kind of things drive you on. And not only that, that side of the things, but the people are so good. You meet people. I've met so many wonderful people, friendships. I rekindled a lot of friendships from with rugby players who I had played with and lost contact with, because obviously Jonathan Chiffy Davis is our president. And there's quite a lot of former internationals, Martin Williams, myself, Chris Stevens, Shane Williams, and there's a lot of those internationals, Tom Shacklin, Martin Williams, that have done that contribute towards Velindre and have been part of the fundraising. So it's probably the closest thing that I've had to rugby, because you work hard in the day, and you have a couple of sherbets at night, a bit of fun and a sing song, and back on it the next day, while raising money. And just kind of an example, really, the money, I think. Kyle, what we just done the Florida ride, and we brought in 530,000, was it?
Yeah.
For the Florida ride. So that is huge, really, in the scheme of things for Velindre. When that's, like you said, that's the specialist nurses paid for a year on the one ride, and we've hit it and done it. So it's something that's really close to my heart, and something that I will long strive to do even after my cycling days are over. I'll still keep myself involved in raising funds in the best way I can for Velindre.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, to cover the nurses in one cycle. But I've got friends who do cycling, and it's not easy at all. You know, it is a test of endurance in many ways, isn't it?
Not cyclist, it is.
I am the Velindre downhill champion.
What about yourself, Kylie? I mean, obviously 18 years is a long time to be in one place. I mean, clearly you're very passionate about yourself. Is there anything that keeps you going?
It is a long time. And, you know, I suppose if you asked anybody who's in a job, if they love it, you know, how have they stayed for 18 years? But as Hugh mentioned, you know, it's the people. It's all about the people, and we're really fortunate at Velindre through the events that we do and through the people who come to raise money for us, generally to say thank you for the treatment they've had or their families or their loved ones have had. And they'll do their own thing or they'll take part in one of our events. But the people are just really special. I think it takes a special person to want to give up your time, you know, want to give into making a difference for others. So on these events, we are surrounded by incredible people. And, you know, every year there's, you know, I don't know how many events we organise each year or are organised in aid of Velindre each year. There's hundreds and hundreds. And every event's different, like I said, whether it's different people or just a different experience. And it's never boring. So it's not, in my job and in Velindre, it's just no day is the same. And you're just constantly surrounded by, you know, really inspirational, hard-working, generous people. And yeah, it's an absolute privilege to do the job that I do and meet these incredible humans. And like I said, it takes somebody, I think is a really special person. And I often say that, you know, because people don't have to say thank you. And they can just verbally say thank you. They don't have to give a donation or they don't have to put their efforts into organising an event to say thank you. They do that because they want to go that, you know, one step further or go that extra mile. And that's, for me, it just, they're incredible people. And yeah, to be surrounded by that. And people often say to me, you know, how can you work in Velindre? It must be so depressing and, you know, being surrounded by cancer all the time. And it's anything but, you know, it's positive, it's inspiring. And, you know, it does make you humble and it makes you reflect. And like, I think I got a different outlook on life now. And, you know, people through those people. And, you know, I think just do it. If you can do it and you've, you know, whether it's book a holiday or do that walk or go on that trip or whatever it is, buy that item of clothing that you might think, oh, it's a bit expensive, or just do it if you can do it. And, you know, it makes you happy, just do it. It does make you think very differently, you know, because you're surrounded by people who may not be that fortunate, who may not be able to go on that holiday, or so you feel like it just gives you a different outlook on life. And for me, you know, it has been life-changing, you know. And yeah, it's just a huge privilege to do the job. And I hope I'm here for another 18 years or more.
Yeah, and I think, can I just take the opportunity as well to just say massive thanks to Kylie and the team. The work they do, the work they put in pursuing people, in getting people involved. And I'm not just talking about rugby players or whatever, because when you look at Kyle, I know Kyle and the team are instrumental in bringing on board people, because alongside the cycle rides, they also do treks and a lot of walks along the piece. And Kylie has worked, I know she worked extremely hard to bring in Rod Gilbert, and Rod has led quite a number of walks, and he's a massive Velindre supporter. And I watched him on stage when it was his kick hoof cancer, and he thought, Kylie, stalk me, she did, and you get him on board, so you get him bigger, and he makes the profile of the Velindre bigger. Again, Kylie did a lot of work, and Andrew at the time, I know, around getting James Dean Bradfield from the Manic Street Preachers, who James is a big supporter, and he's done events. He's done an event on his own for in Blackwood Miners Institute. James Dean Bradfield acoustic set on his own and sat up there and sang to people. The Stereophonics with Kelly Jones, they done a night for Velindre, didn't they, Kyles?
Yeah.
And kind of, what, 85,000 a night raised or something? And it was up close and personal. 180 of us were fortunate enough to be able to get tickets and see them in a room that fitted 180 people with stereophonics 2 foot from you playing all the hits. So as a credit to Kylie, Andrew, and as he was when he was there, but credit to Kylie and Amy and the team there now, and the other fundraisers, and Paul, who's heading it up. The work they do, Kieran, is fantastic, and we have to go out and fundraise, but the organising they do to put things into place is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds immense. I mean, for our next conference, maybe try and get James Dean and the Mannix over to for the after.
Well, I think, funnily enough, talking about a world reach, there was it was one of the walks when they were doing Patagonia, and somebody took a photograph of James Dean Bradfield and said, "Oh, I'm on a walk with James Dean Bradfield," and put it onto social media. And they were flying. I wasn't there, but they were flying into a local airport. That they said, the person said, "Oh, we're flying from Buenos Aires into a local airport." And when they got to the airport, there were like 3,500 people at the airport to see James Dean Bradfield in Patagonia, because that was kind of and it was like, look, and very much is good for the profile of Velindre, right? Got to be careful what you say, because that is the profile of the Mannix,
I think most charities would cut the right arm off to be able to, have not just the names, but how much they give us and how active they are. That is quite unusual to have your president who's happy to, cycle from San Francisco to LA and do these things year after year, and that's why I think our overseas have been so popular, is that we do get the patrons and their celebrity friends to give us a week or 2 weeks to come on these trips. And obviously it helps with recruitment and it helps with the whole experience. You've got Jiffy leading an event and you've got Rod Gilbert leading a trek. Jiff does the bike rides generally, Rod does the treks. And you've got a leader like that, who's passionate about the charity, stood up in front of you and chatting to you every day and giving the talk in the evenings, spurring you on for the next day. Just makes the trips really special, and just adds something, doesn't it, Hugh? When we've got these guys.
And come back, Kylie, those evenings are memorable. Those days when you finish, you've done a real tough day cycling, and it is tough and it has to be, because it's a challenge. And you're on the back end of maybe close to 100 miles down through the Big Sur. You arrive at Hurst Castle Winery, and the bus gets delayed, and you have a fantastic sing-song, a fantastic time, and it's just catching up with different people. And when you're on the rides, when you've kind of finished the day and sit down with a beer and some chicken wings or whatever it may be, and you talk to people, you get to know people more, you find out their stories, and you find out why they're on the ride, and then you talk to people, and they tell you, yeah, well, I was in Velindre, and I was, I had treatment because I had, like Mark Hazel's an example, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then he's treated, and the prognosis wasn't particularly good at one point, and he's through it, and he's now doing the rides and the events, and it's just fantastic camaraderie. They are life-changing experiences for people, and when people come on them for the first time, they're a bit hesitant, as I was on the first one, and you just can't wait to get on the next one. It's like, oh, that was just phenomenal, and raising money at the same time,
Yeah, I mean, and that's the same for us. We were obviously there for a great day of CPD, and we were blessed by all the speakers, by the people who, this unknown conference, but supported us anyway, came in, and really, got stuck in, and it was a really positive vibe. So, hopefully it's the first of many where we have the chance to have a really good day of CPD, engage in our professional development, but also raise money for, what just listen to you guys. It's very, very clear how worthy and how fantastic a cause the Velindre Cancer Centre is. Really appreciate your time today, guys. So thank you very much for joining me.
Our pleasure. Thank you again for supporting us. Honestly, we're just so grateful for everything you've done, and the money that you've raised will be spent wisely. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and Kieran, for myself, on a personal note, obviously thank you very much for the support you've given me, both with the previous events and these events. It really fires off my fundraising and helps, and it goes all, like I say, it all goes to Velindre. And it is, I can't say thank you enough for all the support you've given me. And it's just fantastic. And hopefully we'll have a beer soon.
Yeah, not too long.